I have a daughter and she's dying. The words trembled from the lips of a brilliant black marketing director, her voice breaking in the sterile glow of a hospital room where her 8-year-old daughter lay unconscious, tethered to machines. Once the youngest executive at a tech empire, she faced a world that judged her harshly, whispers of opportunist for her ambition, sidelong glances at her skin color, and a heartbreak that drove her to vanish with a secret. Now, a desperate call to the billionaire CEO she once loved reopens old wounds, forcing her to confront prejudice, betrayal, and a truth that could save her child. Will love triumph over a fractured past? Stay tuned to find out, and don't forget to subscribe to our latest stories. Share where you're watching from in the comments. What secrets will unfold? Keep listening to discover the heart of this family's journey. 8 years ago, in the gleaming heart of a sprawling American metropolis, the headquarters of Remington Technologies stood as a monument to innovation and ambition. Its glass towers pierced the skyline, reflecting the city's restless energy. Inside, on the 35th floor, the air buzzed with the promise of a company poised to reshape the digital world. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a breathtaking view, but the real electricity came from a young black woman standing at the head of a sleek conference room. At 28, she was the youngest marketing director in the company's history, a prodigy whose campaigns transformed consumer desires into art. Her dark eyes sparkled with confidence as she clicked through her presentation, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "This isn't just a product launch," she said, her words commanding the room. "It's about creating connections that feel human in a world obsessed with perfection." Around the mahogany table, board members nodded, their faces a mix of admiration and skepticism. But her focus was on the man at the table's head, the one whose approval mattered most. The CEO, 35, was a figure of quiet power, tall, lean, with piercing blue eyes and dark hair that caught the light. His tailored suit spoke of wealth, but his expression hinted at a deeper unrest, as if success had left him hollow. As the room emptied, he lingered. "Exceptional work," he said, his voice low, carrying an authority that made competitors tremble. "You've captured exactly what we're aiming for." She met his gaze, her heart quickening. "Thank you. I believe authenticity is the future." He smiled, a rare crack in his composed facade. "Stay after. Let's discuss implementation." The conference room felt smaller now, charged with an unspoken tension. He moved to the window, the city sprawling below. "You understand people in a way that's rare," he said. "What do they really want?" She considered, her voice soft but deliberate. "Connection, purpose, to matter." His eyes locked on hers, searching. "And you? What do you want?" The question hung between them, a dangerous and intimate one. "To create something meaningful," she replied. "Marketing that doesn't manipulate, but connects." He stepped closer. "That's why I hired you. You see the bigger picture." Their words danced around something unspoken, a spark that felt both inevitable and forbidden. Over the next few months, their professional partnership deepened into something far more personal. Late nights at the office turned into conversations about dreams, philosophy, and the weight of building something real in a world driven by profit. One evening, as the city lights glittered beyond her office window, he found her still working at 9 p.m. "You don't have to stay this late," he said, his voice softer than usual. She looked up from her laptop, her dark curls falling across her shoulders. "I want it to be perfect. This platform could change how people connect." He moved closer, his presence filling the space. "It's already perfect. You're remarkable, you know that?" Her breath caught, but she held her ground. "Mr. Remington, we should keep this professional." His eyes held hers unguarded. "You're right, but I want to know you beyond these walls." She closed her laptop, needing distance. "I should go." He didn't push, but his words lingered. "Have dinner with me. Just dinner." Against her better judgment, she said yes. The restaurant was discreet, tucked away from the city's prying eyes, a haven for the elite. She felt out of place in her simple black dress, surrounded by designer gowns and polished socialites. His gaze never wavered. "You look beautiful," he said as they sat at a corner table. "Real, not trying to be anyone else." She smiled, deflecting. "Is that unusual in your world?" His laugh was soft, almost bitter. More than you know. They talked for hours about his first company at 19, his love for books over parties, the loneliness that clung to his success. Don't you get lonely? She asked, sharing dessert. Constantly, he admitted. Success brings obligations, not fulfillment. Their connection grew, a fragile thread weaving through stolen moments. Quiet dinners, walks through bustling markets, mornings in his penthouse reading newspapers. She was falling for him, a man whose world she didn't belong to, whose family would never accept her. But the cracks were already forming. At a company gala, a senior executive approached her, his smile too sharp. "You've climbed fast for someone so young," he said, his tone laced with insinuation. "Must have worked hard to catch the CEO's eye." The words stung, a subtle jab at her race and ambition, but she held her head high. "I earned my place with results," she replied coolly, walking away. Later, she overheard whispers in the ladies' room. "She's talented, sure, but does she really belong here?" The comments weren't new, but they cut deeper now, a reminder of the barriers she faced in a world that measured her worth by her skin. The real blow came unexpectedly. One afternoon, she approached his office to drop off a report and heard voices, his and his father's. James Remington, a man whose icy demeanor matched his iron grip on the family empire. "She's a distraction," James said coldly. "A black girl from nowhere, using her charm to climb into our world." Her heart froze. "She's brilliant," the CEO countered, his voice tight. "Worth more than any socialite you'd have me marry." James scoffed. "She knows an opportunity when she sees one. Do you think she'd look at you without your billions?" She pressed herself against the wall, her breath shallow as James continued. "Raven Worthington is perfect for our family. Her connections, her breeding. It's what we need for the merger." The words seared into her, reducing her to a stereotype, a threat to their pristine legacy. That evening, the news broke like a tidal wave. Headlines screamed of his engagement to Raven Worthington, a blonde heiress whose polished perfection embodied everything she was not. The article showed them at a gala, her hand flashing a diamond ring, his smile strained but present. She felt the world tilt, her trust shattering. He hadn't warned her, hadn't fought for her. The betrayal was suffocating. She returned to her office, her hands trembling as she typed a resignation letter. By the time she placed it on his desk, he was still locked in debate with his father. She didn't wait for explanations. She packed her belongings, said goodbye to her team, and left Remington Technologies behind. 2 weeks later, in a small Portland apartment, she sat in a doctor's office staring at test results that changed everything. "You're pregnant," the doctor said gently. 6 weeks along. The words echoed, a mix of terror and hope. She was carrying his child, a child conceived in love but born into a world that had already judged her unworthy. She thought of calling him, of demanding answers, but the image of that engagement photo burned in her mind. His father's words, opportunist, distraction, rang louder than any promise he'd made. She made a choice. She would raise this child alone, free from the judgment of his family, free from a world that saw her as less. She changed her number, left the city, and built a new life, brick by painful brick, determined to protect her child from a legacy that would never accept them. The city's skyline faded from her memory, replaced by Portland's quiet streets and the promise of a fresh start. She didn't know if she was running from him or from the pain of being deemed unworthy, but as she rested a hand on her still flat stomach, she felt a fierce resolve. This child would grow up loved, valued, and free from the weight of a world that measured worth by wealth or skin. She would build a life where they belonged, not as outsiders but as architects of their own story. And so she turned her back on the man she loved, carrying their secret into an uncertain future, determined to prove she was enough. And so she turned her back on the man she loved, carrying their secret into a future she would shape alone. 8 years later, in the cozy chaos of a Portland elementary school, the air was thick with the hum of children rehearsing for a play. The stage was a whirlwind of colorful costumes and nervous giggles, but one small figure stood out. A girl with dark curls and striking blue eyes, her presence radiant despite her slight frame. At 8 years old, she was a whirlwind of creativity, her hands smudged with paint from a morning art project. But in an instant, her world tilted. She swayed during a scene, her lines faltering, and collapsed onto the wooden stage, her small body crumpling like a fallen leaf. Teachers rushed forward, their voices sharp with panic as paramedics were called to Portland Children's Hospital. Her mother, now 36, stood in her modest office at Sinclair Strategies, her boutique marketing firm known for campaigns that spoke to the heart. The phone rang, shattering her focus. "It's an emergency," the school principal's voice crackled through the line. "Your daughter collapsed. She's being taken to the hospital now." The world seemed to stop. She grabbed her keys, her mind racing with dread as she sped through Portland's tree-lined streets, the city blurring past in a haze of fear. At the hospital, she found her daughter in the emergency room, pale and still, surrounded by monitors that beeped with an urgency that clawed at her heart. "What happened?" she demanded, her voice trembling as she gripped the doctor's arm. "Your daughter has severe bone marrow failure," the attending physician explained, his face grim. "Her blood counts are critically low. She needs a transfusion immediately to stabilize her, and we're running tests to confirm, but she'll likely require a bone marrow transplant." The words hit like a physical blow. "Is she going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated. "We're doing everything we can, but we need to know about family medical history. Any relatives with similar conditions?" Her heart sank. She knew little about her daughter's father's medical history, a man she had erased from her life 8 years ago. "Her father? I don't know much," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to contact him," the doctor pressed. "Family members are the best chance for a marrow match." She sat in the hospital's family room, her phone heavy in her hand. His number, still saved under a cold, professional label, stared back at her. 8 years of silence. 8 years of building a life without him, and now her daughter's life depended on breaking that silence. Her hands shook as she dialed, each ring a reminder of the pain she'd buried. On the third ring, his voice answered, deep and familiar, slicing through her defenses. "Hello?" She swallowed hard. "It's me. I need your help." Silence stretched, thick with disbelief. "Where are you?" he asked, his tone urgent. "Portland Children's Hospital. It's about your blood type. You mentioned it's rare." His voice sharpened. "Are you hurt?" "No, I have a daughter. She's 8. She's dying, and she needs a transfusion. You might be the only one who can save her." The line crackled with the weight of her words. "A daughter?" he repeated, his voice breaking. 8 years old?" She closed her eyes, bracing for the truth. "Yes, she's yours. She has AB negative blood with a rare antigen. The doctors say it's in less than 2% of the population." "That's my exact type," he said, his words clipped with realization. "I'm coming now." The call ended and she sat frozen, the enormity of what she'd unleashed settling over her like a storm. Miles away in a Seattle boardroom, the CEO stood mid-presentation, his tailored suit as impeccable as ever, but his face paled as he excused himself. "I have to go," he told the stunned board, ignoring his father's scowl and the lawyer's warning of a PR nightmare. "This could tank the merger," the lawyer hissed. "A secret child? The press will eat you alive." He didn't care. He boarded his private helicopter, the blades slicing through the air as he raced to Portland, his mind a tangle of shock and guilt. A daughter, 8 years old, a child he never knew existed, now fighting for her life. At the hospital, chaos greeted him. Reporters, tipped off by an insider, swarmed the entrance, their cameras flashing like vultures circling. "Do you have a secret child?" one shouted. "Is this a ploy to dodge the merger rumors?" Another sneered, their questions laced with insinuations about the woman who had called him. A black single mother, already painted as a schemer in their headlines. He pushed past, his jaw tight, his focus singular. The girl in room 314. Inside, he found her mother standing by the bed, her face a mask of exhaustion and resolve. Their eyes met, a collision of past promises and present pain. "You kept her from me," he said, his voice low, raw with hurt. She didn't flinch. "You were engaged. Your father called me a gold digger. I did what I thought was right." Their argument was cut short by Dr. Harrison Reed, a no-nonsense physician with test results in hand. "We've confirmed the diagnosis," he said. "Your daughter needs a bone marrow transplant to survive long-term, but first we need a transfusion to stabilize her. Her blood type is extremely rare, AB negative with the Duffy negative antigen." He turned to the CEO. "We need to test you immediately." Without hesitation, he rolled up his sleeve. "Do it." The nurse drew blood, the room heavy with tension as they waited. She broke the silence, her voice sharp. "You didn't fight for me. You let your father dictate your life." He met her gaze, his eyes blazing. "I was never engaged. That announcement was my father's doing. I searched for you for months, but you vanished." Her breath caught, doubt creeping in. Had she misjudged him? The hospital corridor buzzed with whispers. A nurse's aide, unaware of who might overhear, muttered to a colleague, "She must have planned this to trap him. How else does someone like her end up with a billionaire's kid?" The words stung, a reminder of the world's quick judgment, but she ignored them, her focus on her daughter's fragile form. The girl's chest rose and fell weakly, her blue eyes closed, her dark curls stark against the white pillow. The CEO watched her, his expression shifting from shock to something softer, almost reverent. "She's beautiful," he whispered, his voice breaking. Dr. Reed returned, his face taut with urgency. "You're a perfect marrow match," he said to the CEO, "but the procedure carries risks. Fatigue, infection, long recovery. Are you willing?" He nodded without pause. "Whatever it takes." The preparation began, a flurry of medical staff setting up for the transplant. He sat in a sterile room, needles piercing his arm, his blood flowing through tubes that would stabilize his daughter. She stood by the glass watching, her heart torn between gratitude and fear. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked through the window, his voice muffled but piercing. "I was protecting her," she said, her eyes fixed on their daughter. "From your world, your family, the judgment." As the transfusion began, the press outside grew relentless. A tabloid headline flashed on a nurse's phone. "Billionaire's secret child, black mother's scheme?" The accusation was cruel, but she refused to let it break her. She had built a life for her daughter, a company from nothing, a home filled with love. Yet now she faced the man she'd once loved, the father of her child, and the weight of a decision that had kept them apart. The procedure room hummed with tension, the monitors beeping steadily as life flowed from him to their daughter. For the first time in 8 years, they were connected, not by love, but by the desperate need to save the child they had created. And as the machines worked, she wondered if this crisis could bridge the chasm between them, or if it would only deepen the wounds of their past. For the first time in 8 years, they were connected, not by love, but by the desperate need to save the child they had created. As the hospital machines hummed, their daughter's life hung in the balance, and the weight of their shared past pressed heavily on the sterile room. In the days that followed, the hospital became a crucible for healing, not just for the girl, but for the fractured bond between her parents. The 8-year-old, her dark curls framing a face now regaining color, opened her eyes in the recovery room, her blue gaze sharp despite her fragility. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice weak but clear. Her mother, standing vigil by the bed, grasped her hand, tears brimming. "I'm here, sweetheart." The girl's eyes shifted to the man beside her, a stranger with familiar features. "Who are you?" she asked, her curiosity cutting through the haze of recovery. "I'm Phoenix," he said softly, his voice catching. "A friend of your mom's, here to help you get better." Her brow furrowed, her artist's mind already piecing together the puzzle. "You have eyes like mine," she said, studying him. He smiled, a mix of wonder and pain. "I do." The moment was fragile, charged with unspoken truths. As her mother watched, her heart torn between protecting her daughter and facing the man she'd once loved. The doctor interrupted, his tone cautiously optimistic. "The transfusion was successful, and the marrow transplant is taking hold. She's stable, but she'll need rest and monitoring." Her mother exhaled, relief mingling with dread. The crisis was easing, but the questions were just beginning. Back in her hospital room, the girl clutched a sketchbook, her small fingers tracing lines even as she lay propped against pillows. "Why didn't you come sooner?" she asked Phoenix, her voice direct, unfiltered by adult pretenses. He hesitated, glancing at her mother, who stood by the window, her arms crossed. "I didn't know about you," he said honestly, "but I'm here now." Her eyes narrowed, assessing him. "Will you stay?" The question landed like a stone, heavy with 8 years of absence. "I want to," he said, his voice thick. "If you and your mom let me." She nodded, satisfied for now, and flipped open her sketchbook. "This is you," she said, showing him a drawing of a man with sad, searching eyes standing alone against a gray cityscape. "I drew this before I knew you. You looked lonely." Phoenix's breath caught, the image piercing him. "I was," he admitted, his voice barely audible. Her mother watched, her resolve wavering. She had built a life for her daughter, a world of warmth and creativity in Portland, far from the cold judgment of his elite circles. But now, with him here, she felt the pull of what might have been. Yet trust was a fragile thing, and hers had been shattered long ago. The hospital days stretched into a delicate dance of presence and caution. Phoenix lingered, bringing small gifts, a stuffed bear, a set of colored pencils, each met with the girl's quiet delight. But tension brewed when he broached a new topic. "I want to claim her publicly," he said one evening, his voice low as they stood in the hospital corridor. "She's my daughter." Her mother's eyes flashed. "And have her dragged through the tabloids? Your family would fight for custody just to control the narrative." He shook his head. "I'd protect her. You know that," she scoffed. "Like you protected me from your father's words?" The outside world didn't help. At a parent-teacher meeting, she arrived to find curious stares from other parents, their whispers barely concealed. "That's her, the one with the billionaire's kid," one murmured, her tone dripping with speculation. Another parent, attempting small talk, said, "Your daughter's so talented. Must get it from her father's side, right? I mean, with his resources." The comment, cloaked in politeness, stung with the assumption that her own achievements as a black single mother were somehow lesser. She smiled tightly. "She gets it from herself," she replied, her voice firm, redirecting the conversation to her daughter's art projects. But the words lingered, a reminder of the world's eagerness to diminish her. Phoenix, meanwhile, was learning the ropes of fatherhood in real time. At the hospital, he sat awkwardly by the girl's bed, reading her a story about a dragon who found her family. His deep voice stumbled over the whimsical prose, and she giggled, correcting his pronunciation. "You're not very good at this," she teased, her eyes bright. "I'll get better," he promised, and for a moment, the room felt lighter. He showed up at a school event, a science fair, where the girl had built a model volcano with meticulous care. He fumbled with the baking soda, spilling it on his suit, and she laughed, guiding his hands. "You're messy, but you're trying," she said, her approval a small victory. He caught her mother's eye across the room, a flicker of warmth in her guarded expression, but it vanished quickly. The media storm hadn't subsided. A local reporter cornered her outside the hospital, microphone thrust forward. "Is it true you kept your daughter a secret to leverage his wealth?" the reporter asked, her tone sharp with insinuation. The question, laced with racial undertones, cut deep, but she held her composure. "My daughter's health is my only concern," she said, brushing past. The headline the next day twisted her words. "Single mother's motives questioned in billionaire drama." She tossed the paper aside, her anger simmering, but she refused to let it derail her focus. Her daughter needed her strength, not her bitterness. Phoenix's efforts continued, small but deliberate. He canceled a high-stakes board meeting to attend the girls' school play rehearsal, sitting in the back row as she practiced her lines as an orphan seeking her family. His presence drew whispers from other parents, some curious, others judgmental. "He's really here for her?" one asked, skepticism clear. "Must be for show," another muttered. He ignored them, his eyes fixed on his daughter, her small frame commanding the stage. Afterward, she ran to him, holding up a prop flower she'd made. "Did I do good?" she asked. "You were incredible," he said, kneeling to her level, his heart swelling. Her mother watched from a distance, her resolve softening as she saw the genuine bond forming. But doubts lingered. Late one night, as the girl slept, her mother confronted Phoenix in the hospital lounge, the fluorescent lights casting stark shadows. "This can't just be about grand gestures," she said, her voice low but fierce. She needs consistency, not a savior who shows up when it's dramatic. He nodded, his face serious. I know. I'm learning, and I'll keep showing up. She studied him, searching for the man who had let her walk away. I need time, she said finally. She's my world, and I won't let her heart be broken. He met her gaze, unwavering. I won't break it, I swear. The promise hung between them, fragile but earnest, as the hospital's quiet hum enveloped the moment. The girl's recovery progressed, her energy returning in bursts of creativity. She sketched a new drawing, this one of a family. A mother with fierce eyes, a father with a hesitant smile, and a girl holding their hands. This is us, she said, showing it to Phoenix. But you're not lonely anymore, right? He swallowed hard, his voice thick. Not anymore. Her mother watched, her heart stirring with the possibility of trust, but she held firm. This was only the beginning, a tentative step toward healing. The world outside still judged their differences in race and status as a constant undercurrent. But in this small hospital room, a spark of connection flickered, fragile yet undeniable, as they began to navigate the uncharted terrain of family. The world outside still judged their differences in race and status as a constant undercurrent, but in the small hospital room, a spark of connection flickered, fragile yet undeniable, as they began to navigate the uncharted terrain of family. Months later, that spark had grown into a steady flame, warming the gymnasium of a Portland elementary school where rows of proud parents and chattering children gathered for an art show. The air buzzed with anticipation, the walls adorned with vibrant drawings, but all eyes were drawn to a large canvas draped in cloth at the center of the room. The 8-year-old girl, her dark curls bouncing as she adjusted her hand-painted scarf, stood poised by the stage, her blue eyes gleaming with purpose. Her mother, now 36, sat in the front row, her heart a mix of pride and nervous expectation, while beside her, Phoenix, the once distant CEO, shifted in his seat, his tailored jacket out of place among the casual crowd. The art teacher, a warm woman with a knack for encouraging young talent, took the microphone. Our final piece is by one of our brightest stars, she announced. She calls it The Complete Family. The girl stepped forward, her small hands pulling the cloth away to reveal a breathtaking painting. The canvas glowed with color, a fierce black mother with eyes like fire, a solitary man in a suit softened by a hesitant smile, and a child at the center, her arms outstretched, linking them in a radiant burst of light. The figures were surrounded by shadows of their former selves, the mother carrying the world alone, the man lost in a gray empire, and the child reaching for something missing. The light at the center wove them together, transforming isolation into unity. The room fell silent, then erupted in applause, some parents wiping tears as the girl's voice rang out. Families don't start perfect, she said, her tone wise beyond her years, but love makes them whole. Her mother's breath caught, the painting a mirror to their journey. Phoenix reached for her hand, his touch tentative but warm. She's extraordinary, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She nodded, unable to speak, as their daughter's vision of their fractured past and hopeful present pierced her heart. The crowd's murmurs grew, some filled with awe, others tinged with the familiar sting of judgment. A parent nearby leaned over, her voice low but audible. Such a talented kid. Guess she gets that from her dad's side with all his influence. The comment, though cloaked in praise, carried the weight of assumption, diminishing the mother's role. She stiffened, but didn't respond, her focus on her daughter, who stood proudly by her work, oblivious to the undercurrents. Phoenix, however, wasn't oblivious. He stood, his presence commanding the room as he took the microphone from the teacher. I need to say something, he said, his voice steady but charged. This painting is my family, not my company, not my legacy, but this, my daughter and her mother. They are my world. The gymnasium hushed, the weight of his words sinking in. He turned to the girl, his eyes soft. You've shown me what matters most. The crowd applauded again, louder this time, but not everyone was moved. A reporter in the back, scribbling notes, whispered to a colleague, He's playing the family man now, but let's see how long it lasts. The skepticism was a reminder of the world waiting outside, ready to twist their story. The media frenzy hadn't relented. The next morning, a tabloid headline screamed, "Billionaire's redemption or calculated move?" Black mother's role questioned. The article painted her as a cunning strategist, using her daughter to secure a place in his world. She tossed the paper into the trash, her jaw tight, but the words lingered, a cruel echo of the judgments she'd faced for years. Phoenix, furious, called a press conference that afternoon. Standing before a swarm of cameras, he didn't mince words. "My daughter and her mother are not a scandal. They're my family. Anyone who suggests otherwise will face me in court." His voice was steel, his gaze unwavering, and for the first time, she saw him not as the man who had failed her, but as one willing to fight for them. The press backed off, but the whispers persisted, a reminder of the world's reluctance to accept their unconventional bond. That evening, in the warmth of her modest craftsman bungalow, the three of them gathered in the kitchen, a pizza box open on the counter. The girl chattered about her art show, her hands waving as she described the colors she'd chosen. Phoenix, still in his suit but with his tie loosened, fumbled with the pizza cutter, slicing uneven wedges that made her giggle. "You're terrible at this," she teased, grabbing a slice. Her mother laughed, the sound light and unguarded, a rare moment of ease after months of tension. "He's learning," she said, her eyes meeting his, a silent acknowledgement of his efforts. They sat on the floor, picnic style, the girl's sketches scattered around them like a map of her heart. "This feels right," the girl said, her voice soft but certain, "like we're a real family." Her mother's heart clenched, the simplicity of the moment a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Phoenix had made changes. He'd relocated his company's operations to Portland, trading Seattle's sleek towers for a city that felt like home. He'd bought a house 4 blocks away, close enough to be present but giving them space. He showed up for school pickups, navigating the chaos of carpool lines with a CEO's determination but a father's awkwardness. He learned to braid her hair, his large hands clumsy but patient, earning her delighted approval. "You're getting better," she said, inspecting his work in a mirror. He attended community events, standing beside her mother as they cheered at soccer games, ignoring the curious stares of neighbors who saw him as an outsider. Each act was a brick in the foundation he was building, proving he was more than a donor or a headline. The world still pushed back. At a neighborhood barbecue, a well-meaning resident approached her mother, smiling too brightly. "It's amazing how you've managed raising her alone. Now with him around, it must be easier, right? I mean, his resources." The implication hung heavy, as if her success as a mother was tied to his wealth, not her own resilience. She smiled politely. "We've always been enough," she said, her voice firm, redirecting the conversation to her daughter's latest art project. Phoenix overheard, his jaw tightening, but he didn't intervene, respecting her strength. Later, he pulled her aside. "I hate that you have to deal with that," he said quietly. "You shouldn't have to prove yourself." She met his gaze, her voice steady. "I've been proving myself my whole life, but I'm doing it for her, not them." Their bond grew in the quiet moments. One afternoon, they painted together in the backyard, the girl directing them with the confidence of a maestro. "More yellow," she instructed, splashing paint on Phoenix's shirt. He laughed, a sound that felt new, unburdened. Her mother watched, her heart softening as she saw the man he was becoming, not the CEO, but a father, a partner. They ended the day with ice cream, the girl's laughter echoing as she recounted her day. "This is what families do," she said, licking her cone. "They make messes and laugh about it." Phoenix looked at her mother, his eyes warm. "She's right," he said. "This is what matters." For the first time, she let herself believe that they could build something lasting, not just for their daughter, but for themselves. The evening closed with them on the porch, the girl asleep inside, her sketchbook open to a new drawing of them laughing together. "She sees us," her mother said, her voice soft. "Really sees us." Phoenix nodded, his hand brushing hers. "She sees what we can be." The night was quiet, the stars above Portland a reminder of the possibilities ahead. They weren't whole yet, but they were building, piece by piece, a family forged not just by blood, but by choice, resilience, and the courage to defy a world that tried to define them. What an incredible journey of love, resilience, and second chances. We hope this story of a family finding their way back to each other, despite the weight of judgment and misunderstanding, touched your heart as much as it did ours. What did you think of their path to becoming a complete family? Did the daughter's wisdom or the mother's strength resonate with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story moved you and where you're tuning in from. Your reflections make our community stronger, and we're so grateful for your support. Thank you for joining us on this emotional ride, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of love and family. Until next time, keep believing in the beauty of second chances and the courage to build something real. See you soon.